Leadership is always about finding that right balance between, in one moment you might have to push it to one side or you might have to push it to the other, and sometimes you need to be kind of that Goldilocks, like right in the middle, and it's always this kind of tug between both. Hey guys, welcome back to Building a Family Business here on Builder Funnel Radio. As always, I'm joined by my dad Wes and my uncle Brooks. Welcome, guys.
Hey, how you doing, Spence?
Hey, thank you.
Doing good. Yeah, I'm excited for the conversation today because we're going to dig into the past a little bit and talk about, yeah.
Not the past.
Yeah.
Not the past.
Actually, we were just talking about the past, I think way in the past, 1800s. This old house, I guess, where is it located?
We were just talking about your great-grandfather's house in Freiburg, Maine. And we were just talking about outdoor plumbing.
Well, and your great-great-grandfather's house also, who lived there.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
That's
so
right.
They had this outhouse, which is a toilet that's outside. And
Which I just learned.
They connected it to the house. But the cool thing about it was a 3-holer. So as a kid, you'd go out there and there's 3 holes for the outhouse, and then there was the Sears and Roebuck catalog. And there you go. That was your toilet.
Very deluxe. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a kid coming from the city, you go out there, you're like, what the heck is going on out here? This is some crazy stuff.
And the funny
thing you go around the outside, and then they had the doors where you'd open it up down below and you could shovel everything out. You know, I'll let you put the picture together.
Yeah, good way to kick things off here with that image in our minds. Yeah.
But I think you're right, Brooks, that there was a 3-holer and you're going, oh, okay, so 3 people all pile in here.
Yeah, read the paper together. Yeah, what's going on, Roy?
Yeah. So we're not gonna. What's that?
Not much different than a lot of big office buildings now. I mean, all you do is just have
that's right.
metal there.
Just have that nice wall there.
Yeah, we've gotten so advanced. Yeah. So we're not going to really dive that far into the past, but we were going to dive into kind of just top lessons learned, kind of reflecting on your guys' past experience. You've both got, at least a couple decades in the business environment in several different iterations of that. So I guess, Brooks, what's something that as you think back, you wished you learned sooner?
Personality profiles. Understanding personalities, just clueless. I mean, at least I'm aware of it and try to do a better job of it, but it's understanding people and their personalities, and that, really you're not going to change people. So you just need to learn how to work with them. And so we added that later on when Todd and I were running the company. We added doing personality profiles, using that as part of the interview process, and really understanding where people were coming from. Technically they could be very good, but maybe their personality is not a fit for, the company.
Yeah.
So I think that would have saved me a lot of stress.
Yeah. So when you say you were kind of clueless about them, or that it would have saved you stress, I guess, what did that look like when you just didn't think about that part of it,
Well, me and clueless are 2 things that go together, but it looked like not, having done any research or understanding into just personality types, or, what are people's motivations and what drives people, and just being totally unaware of that. I'm just amazed at how unaware I was. And so what that meant is that you worked with people and you just didn't understand why they were doing what they were doing.
Because they weren't doing stuff like you.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, I just figure everyone thinks this way. Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah, they're not doing it. Everyone should do it the way I do it. And it took me 20 years to figure that out. And even now I'm still surprised.
No, I mean, I think that's a great idea. I don't think I saw personality profiles. Brooks, you did it, after I left the company, but right. The new company I went to, we were just doing personality profiles. My father-in-law had just contracted with the company to come through and do personality profiles for the entire company. And there's probably, 25 or so of us at that time. And but it was all new stuff at that time. We've been mid 90s.
Cutting edge, yeah.
It was very, very cutting edge. And, but I found that really illuminating as well. So I agree with Brooks. That's a great thing. I think what it helps you realize is that, let's say you take somebody who is very social and, you know, in the DISC profiling, it's like, they call it a high I or something, but in a different type of system would be called something else. Myers-Briggs would call it something else. But, you know, you have a high I, someone who really likes people, wants to be engaged with people all the time and life of the party. This is not the person that you want in your accounting department, because they're going to, you know, because they're constantly going, oh, I'm not happy. You know, I want to get up and I want to go visit with people. And so you learn, I think, how to place people in jobs a little bit better, or know where it's not maybe going to be a perfect fit. And I think also where it helped me was learning how to deal with people. You know, Brooks was talking about, hey, you know, so Brooks, you're a super gregarious sort of person, you know, very outgoing. You would be a high I, right? You know, you're definitely a high I. And so, you know, if you're a high I, and I was a high I until that was beaten out of me. But
well done.
Exactly. But you don't realize that sometimes, because you're a high I and you get excited about things, and you, if you're going to somebody who, let's go back to your accounting department, someone who really is very methodical and meticulous, and so you come in, you've got a great idea, and you just kind of throw that at that person, and they go, whoa, back up. I need time to process this and think about it. And you just can't understand why you're getting this pushback. And so you don't handle it the right way because you don't understand the person that you're talking to. So it's pretty helpful.
Yeah, I think personality profiles is a great, it makes life just a lot easier. So it's something that if you have a better understanding of yourself, and then if you incorporate that personality profile, you can actually add it to your job descriptions and say, hey, you know, these are an ideal personality profile for this job, would be, you know, kind of somewhere with some of these strong characters. And that can be helpful as you're interviewing, as you're trying to build your business, so you're not having to hire the wrong person. And then it just helps you manage better. And we did it all. We did all the personality profiles, you know, with our kids and our spouses, you know, so it's always fun to do too, as your kids are, you know, growing up, say, oh, well, what kind of personality profile are you? And it helps your kids get a better understanding of you as a parent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, dad's an ass. Okay, well, it didn't show that in the profile. But...
Yeah, where does that show up? Oh, that's in the third section. Yeah,
that's the third section, really down low. You can't see it.
I will say one thing about personality profiles, though, that Karen, my wife, and Spencer's mother, but she would always point out about personality profiles, because she used to have to administer them. She always point out that you don't want to pigeonhole someone, though, within that box, because oh, well, gee, there's only 16 personality profiles in the world and everyone fits in one of those boxes, so we only have 16 different types of people, which is totally untrue, right? Everything is informed by your life experience and everything else that goes into making you a unique individual. So I think if you do use personality profiles, which are a great tool, you just have to recognize it's a tool and it's helping you, but it's not defining everything about.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, Wes, that you don't use it as a way to exclude. You just say, hey, it gives you some indications, so you'd understand. We hired many people that, you know, they weren't, you know, the profile we were looking for, you know, they didn't meet that totally. They had some of those aspects, but you just would then understand a better way to work with them, and you'd have discussions in that hiring process about, you know, because we had them take the test as part of the application process.
Correct.
And so that was super helpful. Then you're able to talk about your profile and how you use it in the company. And then it becomes, you know, more of a dialogue. So it can be kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah, like sales would be a good example. There are many highly successful salespeople that fall into different personality profiles. There's just, like Brooks is saying, helps inform that person, helps inform you as to how they might adjust their technique in selling. You know, they can be very successful and have several different
Yeah, it seems like one of the bigger takeaways is it's an enablement tool, not a tool to be used against people. And you're just trying to use it as a way to bridge that gap and go, hey, we're different. That's okay. This is how I like to get information. This is how you like to get information.
Yeah, there was even a company Todd worked for a couple of years where they actually put up on their desk, the thing, it had their profile and said, hey, here's how I like to get information. Here's how I like to give it. They had that up there for a couple of years, and it went by the wayside eventually, but it's a good idea, just that idea of like, oh, this is how I like to perceive information, and this is like how I like to give it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a good one. I know you guys have brought the personality profiles up, I think, on several episodes, so I definitely can feel how important you felt it was. And I think we've used it here, not as much as we should, but yeah, when you take that test, there's a couple of things that just come out of that. We're going, oh, okay. And it just kind of clicks. You're like, oh, I get why that person does X in these situations, or I get why they always ask more questions. It's because they like all the facts and all the information, and you start to uncover those types of things.
And we even did it. We did it amongst the 5 siblings just for fun exercise, and that was that's kind of fun, and it gives you better understanding of how you interact, especially in a sibling dynamic where you've grown up in a similar household for the most part. And like, oh, why do they act that way?
Yeah. So Wes, as you think back, what's something you wish you learned sooner?
Well, and I don't know how I would have learned this sooner other than somebody telling me. But I think one of the things is that nothing lasts forever in business. So, and I wish I had learned that sooner. So when times are good, that's great, but good times don't last. And the converse is also true. When you're in the thick of it and things are, the economy isn't good and things aren't going well, that doesn't last forever either. And so, so when you're riding high, that means, hey, start planning, looking out ahead. How am I going to navigate the downturn, or how am I going to make sure that I'm in good shape for whatever the downturn is? And when things are really bad, it helps pick you up and go, okay, but I know that business cycles change, things change, and I need to be lifting my head up out of the muck and trying to figure out how I'm going to come out of this stronger. And I just wish I had picked up on that sooner, because I think we've talked about this on an earlier program as well. But when we first got in the building business, I think Brooks and I were like, hey, guess what? We're big extrapolators. I think all of us on this program are extrapolators. Give us a spreadsheet. Get out
the Excel sheet.
Hey man, this is going to be
run it out.
Yeah, just run it out. 5% a year, whatever it is. But that was the mistake. We're going, okay, well, we can build these same floor plans. We can, we'll sell exactly the same way, and it's just a system. And there is truth to the idea of a system, for sure, very powerful, but that doesn't mean that you are tied in tight to a particular way of doing things and have no flexibility. Because if you're not flexible, then you will break. And that's usually what happens, is that your system breaks if there's no flexibility built into it. So anyway, that's just something I wish I'd learned.
Yeah. Well, think about how often McDonald's tries to change products, trying to figure out, so they're trying to adapt, and they have some big failures and they have some successes, but they're always working. Okay, well, how do we need to adapt?
That's a good point, because how long is that franchise system? And that's a system,
It's a system, yeah.
Look at the successful franchises, and those are the ones that can adapt their product line, the way they provide services. Now, you notice that McDonald's does flame out on a lot of stuff,
sure.
But they're trying, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I remember, back in the day, salads, right? They were doing salads, and that was just
right.
Just didn't work. But they tried it, and they do other stuff. And so I think you have to be willing to, like you say, Wes, it's like, things are not going to be the same. And when times are good, raise your prices, make as much margin as you can, sock it away. And when times are bad, then realize it's not going to last forever. It can last a long time, though.
Yeah.
It can last for years. So you just have to, stay in there swinging.
And it's something that you just said, Wes, connected to a book I'm reading. You mentioned you have to be flexible, and I'm reading a book called Anti-Fragile by, I'm going to butcher his name. I think it's Nassim Taleb. And it's like the fourth or fifth in a series, but he talks about basically when you have these big shocks to a system or, your environment or whatever, if it's the fragile companies or people that crumble, and being anti-fragile is having that flexibility to adapt and change. And oftentimes those are the companies or people that they don't even, survival is like the minimum, but a lot of times they end up thriving in those environments because they just jump and adapt. And so, I think that point about just recognizing the environment you're in and then just rushing to change and take action, and you'll miss sometimes and you'll hit sometimes, but if you just stay stagnant, like, you'll just get crushed. So I think that's a good one. What about things that you've had to learn the hard way? Brooks, is there something that stands out where you're like, oh,
nothing,
man,
right? Nothing.
Yeah, just most of my business career.
Yeah.
The hard way.
All right, well, let's block off the next 6 hours and we'll go through every
Yeah, everyone
point.
get out a box of tissues. Gonna hear this sad story. I never really talked about, I had the opportunity to go to college, go to business school, which was great. But, they really never talked about cash flow. I mean, they touch on it for, I don't know how, yeah. What about cash flow? Without cash, you're just toast. And you learn that the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
You run out of cash.
I think that's true. I was thinking about that teaching accounting in college. They teach you how to do a cash flow or a cash analysis, basically, but they don't explain why that's really important. And I think that's what you're getting at.
That's true. Yeah. You don't really learn the why. Yeah.
It's just another report.
Right. You're like, oh, this number's negative. This number's positive in this problem that I'm working out.
Yeah.
I got it right.
But the company went out of business. And I had to go back and take some, simple, I forget, there used to be this company, I think they're still around, Fred Pryor seminars, and they're very simple, they're just very, a day at a time. You can take these things about, So I went and took some seminars on cash flow and just had to learn, because you're like, why am I having a problem here? Why don't I really understand this? And especially in the construction business where you're using construction loans and you're borrowing money, you might be borrowing $3-4 million at a time, and then you're wondering, now, why am I out of cash? Yeah.
And Brooks, I know you probably, well, I'm sure you do remember because we did it together. But I just remember when we were first building houses, and we were, making good money and making money every month and everything, but it was always that cash flow issue, and it took me quite a while to figure out what the problem was, because you would buy a piece of property and then you would have to front load all this cash into that piece of property to get it to the point where then you could put a loan on it and build a house, so you're doing some improvements. And so if you get enough of those things going where you're going, oh, I've got 15 lots here and I'm trying to get permits and I'm doing a little bit of engineering and this and that, and you're putting all this cash into it. Well, okay. So that's all cash that came from somewhere. And that's just out of your reserves. And once you've used up your reserves, if you don't have any money to borrow, even though you're going to make money and you're making money every month with closings, it's all timing. So learning out that timing of cash flow is critical, because you can just run out of cash.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I know you guys have mentioned, that's the oxygen for any business, that's why most of them fail, is you run out of cash. So, Wes, what's something that comes to mind for you that you had to learn the hard way?
I think, and this was not in the building side of the business, this was in the direct mail business, but I think I learned that you can't fix personnel issues with money. So, yeah. and let me explain. So, at one point I had 3 managers who didn't get along very well. They bickered and they fought, and they didn't work well together. But they're all important in their own way for the areas they worked in. And I thought, well, if I can kind of get everyone pointed in the same direction, working as a team, you know, that would be helpful. And my way to do it was, hey, I'll give them some financial incentives. And what I did was a thing called phantom stock, which was, hey, I'm going to give you what looks like it's going to act like the stock in the company, and it's going to go up in value as the company does better. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to incentivize everyone to work, improving the value of the company, and we're all being pointed in the same direction. And I had a vesting schedule of that. Okay, well, I'm going to give you some phantom stock, and 20% this year, and vested for 40% after 2 years, and so on and so forth. So really all I did was lock people into the company that weren't happy. So sometimes you give out financial incentives and things like that, thinking this is really going to help me, but really what it does is it keeps people around who don't want to be around, but they don't want to leave because of the golden handcuffs. So they're just waiting for everything to vest, and then once it's vested, then they're still unhappy and they may leave, or you may have to ask them to go, which is usually what I ended up doing. But it's pretty painful. So I think this goes back to what Brooks was talking about at the beginning with the personality profiles, and also just making sure that people are really want to be doing what they're doing for you, that they enjoy their job, that it's, or at least they don't hate their job, so that's more important. I mean, job satisfaction isn't around the money. I guess that's what I really learned was money has to be right. It can't be too little, so it's a problem for people, but the money is not going to solve any interpersonal issues or management issues or anything like that.
No, if someone's, I totally agree, Wes. If someone is kind of unhappy, or it's just not a good fit, or there's dissension in the team, money's not going to get any of that. It's solve your personnel problems, and don't solve it yourself. Because if they're fairly compensated, either it all gels or it doesn't. If it doesn't, they need to move on and find another place to be. And probably to go add to that, Wes, would be, do that sooner than later as a manager. Don't put up with poor performance. Don't put up with, bad attitudes, things like that. Just, sit down and say, hey, it doesn't seem like this is the right fit. We want to help you find a new place to go. And so we had to do that quite a bit, but yeah, we didn't. The longer you're in business, the less patience you have for, things that are not fitting. And you're like, okay, we need to make a change here.
Right. And that's a great point. I would totally agree with that. I think that's try to help people solve their problems or their issues with the job, but don't let it fester and go on too long. And either you're going to move through to a resolution to issues or you're not. Right. You just don't want to be caught in that middle ground of not doing anything. And if people aren't happy, then other people aren't going to be happy. And it's
right. You'll lose good people who will take action. Yeah.
And we've all had that experience where, you've ended up having to let somebody go. It wasn't a good fit. And then everyone else comes up to you later and says, well, what took you so long to do that?
Yeah.
Because they were unhappy as well because of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that poison poison just it flows fast. As soon as that starts to happen, and to your point, Brooks, I mean, it impacts great people, and if you lose a great person over that, man, that stings.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good one. So thinking about, I guess the past and just different as you pick up like skills along the way during your career and, in the business environment, what is maybe one of the top skills that you would recommend somebody work on improving or leveling up or getting some coaching around? Brooks, is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, there really is. I would say interpersonal skills. Learning to be a better person and how to interact with people in a better way. And that, it comes with maturity. It doesn't necessarily come with maturity, but it can come with as you get older. But I think the sooner you can learn how how to interact with people in a positive way, to work through difficult situations, but in with a positive outcome, even when they're hard decisions, like we just talked about, someone needs to be, terminated or moved on or something, then I think that's helpful because it can reduce a lot of stress. So working on your interpersonal skills, and that's not something really any of us get trained on. You're raised, by a parent or your parents, and you're just kind of, now you're an adult, and well, go out there and get them, and you might have, and depending on the personalities of who you interact with as a young person, it's going to form how you interact, and then your personality profile, and then here you are. So I think interpersonal skills would be, for me, I would have been like, I still struggle with that. I think training on that and understanding that you have to work at it.
So what does that look like, learning that skill? What would you recommend to develop that? Do you know? Yeah.
That's a very good question. If you could afford I guess you could read up on it. You could probably, now you could watch a lot of TED Talks about it, where we didn't have that before. You used to go to a seminar like, improve your interpersonal skills,
Right.
how not to be an ass.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're far enough along in your business career, you can afford a coach. That's helpful. That could help you do that for a while. Because the more you can, I think the more you can improve that, the further you'll get in your business career, because you don't end up wrecking relationships or going backwards because you blew up at somebody. For me, I'm pretty reactionary, so I have to try to work to not be reactionary, because then you just end up going backwards. You blow somebody up because you're frustrated with them versus, hey, how can we work through this? You can move further. So that was just for me, probably because I am more reactionary, if I had learned better interpersonal skills earlier. So I'd say, if that's something that's a challenge for you, so maybe the answer to your question is, if you think there's something that's challenging for you, work on that. Maybe that's
yeah. Good answer. Yeah. But for you, that was the one.
I guess that's why I say that, because that for me it was a problem.
Yeah. That's good. Wes, how about you? Anything coming to mind in terms of skills that people should be thinking about?
Well, I think what Brooks said is great. I think that would be at the top of anyone's list. Getting along with people, and certainly is a top of the list. But I think secondarily, I had put down really financial skills, financial analysis. We talked about cash flow at the top of the program. So you're not going to be in business long if you don't understand your numbers. So I would put that at high up on the list as well.
I'd put it at the top for sure. You better understand your numbers, because you're not going to worry about your interpersonal skills. You don't have your numbers together.
He was a nice guy until
Fair
he
point.
got
Yeah.
business. Right. Until he ran out of cash, then he wasn't as nice anymore. So that's why I would put there. And so if you're afraid of numbers or you struggle with numbers, embrace that and go get some help with it. And don't just try to hire that out to somebody else, because believe me, you need to check the numbers. So if you can't check the numbers and you've abdicated that responsibility, we've certainly heard lots and lots of stories of companies that have had bookkeepers that have absconded with many, many dollars because the owner was afraid of numbers, didn't like numbers, and they just hired somebody and said, here, just take care of all of that. I don't want to think about it. And
Yeah, well, and my wife worked in the economic crimes division down at the DA's office for a while, and she said almost all those cases were, theft of a business. It was just like the example you used. So many of them. So yeah, you have to at least know enough to be able to check it. I think that's a really good point, even if it's not your, top skill, or, you're not a numbers person.
And you need to know if you're making money, and you need to know if you're going to run out of cash, and you need to know how to figure those things out. And you really can't turn that over to somebody else. You can get somebody else to pull numbers for you and put things together, but you need to be able to look at those numbers and those reports and understand what they mean.
Yeah. So I saw Brooks, it looked like you were maybe disagreeing or something. You know, I was going to transition us, but hold on, there's something else there. So.
Well, I'm just thinking about, especially in construction, we have, you know, WIP, work in process, such a problem area. So just, I'd add that you've got to understand your WIP, and what goes in and what goes out. And especially if you're doing new homes or where it's like, hey, we spent 200 grand on this house and it's sold, so we better, the 200 grand better come out of WIP, because it can really overstate or understate your earnings or your cash flow. So, and that's a problem. That's an area where a lot of accountants don't understand work in process and what the results that happens in remodeling. Yeah.
I can relate a story if anyone's interested.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Well, I certainly, at one point in my career where I thought I was doing quite well in the direct mail business, we had started contracting out to buy prints. So we'd get a direct mail program put together. We have to print all the pieces and put them in the mail and mail them. So when you buy print, you have a job. All that print cost goes into your work in process, right? And so that if your accountant, when that job closes, does not take that work in process account and say, oh, I need to expense this much, the cost of the paper basically out of that job, it's going to overstate how much you make on a job. Same thing that Brooks was just talking about with houses. So in our case, we had a work in process account and just kept growing and growing and growing because our accountant never subtracted out the costs of that paper. And so what are the ramifications of someone doing that? Number one, as Brooks said, well, it way overstates how much money you're making. So you're looking at your P&Ls and you're going, man, look at my net profit. This is great. Well, what are some of the ramifications of that? Well, in my case, I'm going, well, everyone gets bonuses. So, hey, let's pay out some big bonuses. Look at this, we're doing fantastic. And so when we found that problem went on, I bet you it went on at least a year, maybe 2 years in our case. And once it was figured out, well, we'd paid out bonuses that we shouldn't have paid out. So that hurt our cash position. We had overstated our income on our tax returns. So we paid way too much tax on our income tax returns and had to go back and refile and get refunds. And of course, all of that hurts your cash flow, which then puts a crimp on it. So you're going, well, I'm making money. I have no cash.
What's going on?
What's going on? And that's really what the red flag was for us. It was like, oh, we don't have cash, but we're making money. What's going on?
Well, it goes back to understanding the balance sheet. And
understand your balance sheet.
Understand your balance sheet. And if you don't understand your balance sheet, just go find someone else in business and say, hey, I have no idea what's going on in my balance sheet. Can you walk me through this? And it'd probably be another business person that would walk you through it versus an accountant.
And I think the sad thing in my particular case is I understood my balance sheet. Right. I was moving too fast.
Yeah.
So I wasn't taking the time to really go through each line and look at things and go, okay, what does this mean and why is this way? And when you're making money or you think you're making money, it's very easy to gloss over your statements and give them a cursory and go, yep, this all looks pretty good. So anyway, word to the wise.
Yeah. No, that's a good example of how even if you, like you said, you understand it, sure. If you're just moving too fast or you aren't going through it methodically, at least every once in a while to really dig in and see if it's accurate, then you can miss stuff still.
Very easy to miss stuff.
Yeah, and if you're big enough where you have like a controller for hire or a CFO for hire, then one of those things you need to be super diligent about is you have a monthly appointment with that person. You sit down and say, Okay, I've been running a million miles an hour, trying to sell, trying to do whatever. Let's spend 2 hours, over lunch and, walk me through what happened last month, and, and look at each line on your balance sheet and look at each line on your P&L. And, you always have to force yourself to do that.
Yeah.
And you'll miss stuff every time, and 3 months later, you'll be, well, how did I miss that 3 months ago? Or, but if you just are diligent about it, and even to this day, you just have to be diligent about it all the time. If you're going to have an operating business, you've got to be diligent. So set something up that makes you do it. Because who wants to do it? Nobody wants to do it. That's the worst part. We all want to make money, but we don't want to have to do the hard work, which is, okay, how do you make sure you're making money?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it feels tedious when you're going through it.
It is tedious. Yeah. It's terrible. It's the worst. But you like to make money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Brooks, what's something that you feel like you wasted a lot of time on, but you
going through balance sheets? That's it.
Yeah, I know. I just teed you up for that one. Yeah.
What's something I wasted a lot of time that I shouldn't have? Oh, spending too much time with people who just didn't want to be there. Thinking, if I do this, this will work with that employee or that vendor, or instead of just moving on. And we had some employees. I had some employees early on in the construction business. We didn't have a hiring process. We didn't have an HR person. It'd be like, oh, we need a laborer. We need someone to do this work, and we just hire anybody, and nothing but trouble. Nothing but problems. Yeah, Wes and I could go, we could do 47 podcasts about that.
Now, it's just funny that you said that, Brooks, because when Spencer was asking that question, now that's exactly what came to my mind, which is working with people who don't get along.
Yeah.
And so life is too short. Your business will be poorly impacted by those people. And it's not, if you do good hires, you'll still have some interpersonal things to work out, help people work through, but it goes way, way down. And if you're spending 40% of your time, helping people get along just so you can get the jobs done, man, life's too short, and you
can't get anything done.
Can't get anything done, and can't make money, and people are unhappy, and so just help them move along.
Yeah, it's understanding that early on in my career, it was not having the maturity or the understanding, the depth of knowledge to realize, oh, that's just part of business, part of working with people. That, if you made the wrong hire, it's not going to get any better with time.
I think on the flip side, though, every once, get someone who knows you really well and ask them, hey, am I a jerk? Am I a bad boss?
Yeah.
Really, what could I be doing better? Because sometimes you are part of the problem.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're not managing correctly, either you're too loose or you're too tight, or, you're just, as Brooks was saying, oh, maybe you're too explosive, or, you're not even enough, or you don't have a pulse, whatever it is. But anyway, work on yourself as well. But
absolutely.
But don't always put it on yourself either. Recognize that it's not always the right fit, and move through those problems.
Yeah, move through them, and each time you move through one, you'll get that depth of experience. You'll say, okay, what did I learn from this? And it may be that, I need to be a better boss, so I need to be working on that. And while I'm working on that, I may have to change employees, and you just want a team that really hums, and that's pretty hard. That's pretty challenging to do, because it's having employees is dynamic.
Yeah, and so I think hiring for fit versus technical skills. So lots of times we hire for technical skills and we don't think about the other side of it, and so you can kind of get trapped in that. Oh, well, this is the only person that can ever do this work because it's so skilled, and and that. There's some truth to it. The person has to be able to have the skills, but you also have to have that personality fit and the right attitude and fit with your culture and everything. And if you get that wrong, don't hang on just because you think you can never get another person to do that work because of their technical set. You can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And especially now when there's a lot of people available looking for work, there's opportunities there to fill those positions.
Yeah. And I think 2 books came to mind as you guys were talking about this. I think we've mentioned at least one of them before, but Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink. That's one where, you said, hey, look at yourself. What can you own as a part of that situation? But then also, Wes, you were talking about not being too hot or too cold, or, dichotomy of leadership, same author, but he really talks about leadership is always about finding that right balance between, in one moment, you might have to push it to one side, or you might have to push it to the other. And sometimes you need to be kind of that Goldilocks, like right in the middle. And it's always this kind of tug between both. And so anyway, we'll drop those in the show notes for everybody. As we wrap today, we'll maybe finish on a high note. Brooks, maybe what's one of your biggest wins as you reflect back on everything?
Probably biggest win would be, near the end of my career, where we made a great hire with a good salesperson, and we hired for sales when we had no sales. And, we were starting up our renovations division, and we hired a salesperson after we built the pipeline. And it was probably the first time in 30 years where it's like, oh, we really have a good sales system. And if I had a good sales system very early on, I think Wes, very early on in our career, if we had a better sales system back in the 80s, I think we would have done a lot better. Instead of just kind of using, well, you get a realtor and they sell the houses. We didn't have a sales system. No. So I think a good sales system can be a big win.
Yeah, that's cool. How about you, Wes?
Well, I like Brooks's. That's great. I think biggest win would be building rental properties early. And certainly, we built some rental properties early, and those rental properties ended up paying for everyone's college educations, all the kids' college educations and everything else. And so I think trying to make some of those moves early on, if you can really help in the long term. So
yeah,
plant the seeds early.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I still talk to my kids about that very same thing, just the earlier you can, knock down your first rental or your second rental, it just kind of gets rolling.
Yeah. Good advice. Yeah. Sometimes you playing that long game, but having the knowledge or the foresight to just get it started, and then all of a sudden you look up and, I do that sometimes. I'm like, holy cow, it's been 10 years since I started on this. Like, it goes fast. And so, yeah, that's.
Well, don't forget, no matter where you are, whatever age you are, people are living to be 90. Okay. Well, you can buy a rental when you're 60.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be paying off for you, when you're 80, so it's not, I remember having a conversation with somebody. They're like, well, they were 65 or something. They're like, well, that's kind of all over for me as far as what I'm going to do for retirement and stuff. I'm like, no, you still got another 25 years where if you keep investing or doing whatever, it's all going to pay off. So it was like an aha moment. I'm like, yeah, most of us will be able to live a long time. So.
And that's a good point, Brooks. And they've shown that really your most productive years are really your 50s and 60s. In the sense that.
You're back to work now.
Exactly. but really, because you're reaching that sweet spot of everything that you've learned, and you're applying it, and all those hard lessons that you've learned and everything. So sometimes, nose down and really go when you're in your 50s, and don't think that it's all over, as Brooks was saying.
Right.
Our dad, your grandfather Spencer, he certainly built some things in his 60s and 70s, and he's really got after it. So it's never over till it's over, baby.
Yeah.
And then it's
Keep
over.
it rolling. Yeah, and then
it's over.
Boom. just like this show is over. So.
Yeah, that's right. Now it's over.
On that note.
Yeah. On that note, no, but thanks, guys. This was good. It's fun digging into those lessons. I always think about, we all make mistakes, but anytime you can uncover things from other people and share that wisdom and pass it along, it just allows people to shortcut a couple of those things, and that could be all the difference. So hopefully you guys listen. We'll take at least one or two of these things and put it into action. And as always, we'll see you next week here on Building a Family Business on Builder Funnel Radio.